Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and this week I've got a special offer for you. If you are very quick, you can subscribe to this channel, lifetime subscription for absolutely nothing whatsoever. You just go and click that little subscribe button, and you can hit that bell as well if you want. I don't know what it does, but it might be worth having a go. And as I say, it's once in a lifetime opportunity. Now, today I want to talk a little bit about Brexit and how it's all going. But at the end of this video, I'm going to read you a couple of comments in response to my video last week, and comments which I think demonstrate just how stupid some people are and how really those sort of people are going to make it quite difficult for us, or going to make it much more difficult for us to even attempt to rejoin any part of the EU. As you know, whenever the subject comes up, the government says, oh, no, we must move on, and nobody wants to go back. We can't go through all that again. No, we've got to move on. Seize new opportunities. And there was a conference the week before last. It was a conference whereby CEOs from multinationals all over the world came to London to hear about why they should invest in the UK. And there was lots of fanfare afterwards about, we're going to give you £53 billion worth of investments in the UK, and all these CEOs had terrific confidence and so on, and we've yet to see just how much is actually invested. And you have to say, well, why would they invest in the UK? And whilst it's great to get foreign investment, if it creates employment and it brings firms here who are going to pay taxes and so on, you have to ask, why do they do it? What's in it for them? And they probably have the same motives as the people who bought the gas, the electricity, the water, and bought Heathrow Airport, and bought Gatwick Airport, and bought Felixstowe Harbour, and all the other infrastructure, and all the other businesses in this country which now belong to foreigners. And the answer is, frankly, they want to make money out of it. And that money will all be sent to wherever they come from. One of the prominent investors, or potential investors, was DP World, which belongs to Dubai, and it's the firm that Louise Haig upset before by saying that people should boycott them. And they're going to be apparently running some of our free ports. Now, our free ports are places where you get huge tax concessions and all sorts of other advantages, and are slightly sort of outside the law, and are famous for being places where all sorts of money laundering and smuggling and so on is liable to take place. Not suggesting for one moment that DP World will be involved in any of that. But no, they'll come here, they'll take all the advantages and so on, they'll probably make lots of money here, and that money will all go back to Dubai. And so when, as I keep saying every week, when you've got so much business and so much of infrastructure belonging to foreigners, how can you grow your economy? And so I don't know that inviting all this foreign investment is necessarily a good thing. But I want to read you something that was written in The Guardian by Stella Creasy. Now, Stella Creasy is an MP. She's a very bright, very clever MP, a Labour MP for Walthamstow. And she's been a vocal critic of Brexit right from the start. And this is what she wrote last week concerning this investment conference. She said, why would any business locate themselves in a country that has cut itself off from the world's largest trading bloc when it could just do business in the world's largest trading bloc? That is the question investors are no doubt asking themselves at Britain's big investment summit this week. Brexit has not been a big bang of damage, but a slow drain of talent, investment, and ultimately growth. Aston University research shows that there's been a 27% drop in UK exports and a 37% decline in imports from the EU since 2021, which translates to an annual loss of 183 billion. And she then goes on to say, on the ground, complaints are legion. The Brexit border tax means you can't import agricultural products without facing extortionate charges and delays. VAT rules for 27 different countries create paperwork headaches of epic proportions. Our creative industries are hemorrhaging touring contracts because of visa and work restrictions. The last government had to offer subsidies to the car and steel sectors to retain them. Higher education, another great British export, has not recovered from being kicked out of Horizon and Erasmus, or the loss of international students. And I think that sums it up pretty well when she mentions about having to bribe steel and car companies. She's talking, of course, about Tata, who received, I believe, £500 million in order to set up a battery factory in Somerset, and another £500 million in order not to completely close the steelworks at Port Talbot. And no doubt a lot of these other companies that we're trying to invite to come here and invest are being given similar sweeteners, or perhaps not quite as generous, but various incentives. And you can't help thinking that really, if you just go on and on and on selling everything off, instead of focusing really on developing our own businesses, and that's what we have to do, develop homegrown businesses, but there doesn't seem much interest in it. Now, to read you a few other stories that I read in the press this last week, and some of them are really quite depressing. The Grocer said the UK food self-sufficiency is at a critical low due to Brexit challenges and extreme weather conditions, according to a new report. Research by London-based City Harvest showed only 1 in 10 food industry leaders were optimistic that UK food security would improve by the end of 2025. The vast majority, 77%, said the most significant challenge for Britain's food industry in the coming year was increased production costs, largely attributable to the post-Brexit regulatory landscape, as well as adverse climate patterns. An article in the Times referred to a survey carried out by Santander, the bank. 1/3 of UK businesses are now complaining about new Brexit red tape, such as customs procedures. The Irish Times: almost 2/3 of Irish small and medium-sized enterprises have reduced or completely stopped using British suppliers since Brexit. More than 1/3 have stopped selling to customers in Britain. This is applying all over the EU. And then this is quite alarming concerning the import of plants and seeds and so on. And this is from Euronews. Europe's powerful plant sector is struggling to cope with the UK post-Brexit border checks that are adding delays and costs to exports and forcing some suppliers out of the UK market. Specialist transporters are now pulling out of the UK market entirely, leaving a shrinking pool of suppliers. Insufficient capacity at UK ports to conduct the lengthy physical inspection of horticultural products to prevent pests and disease from entering the country is disrupting the flow of goods. Now, for 45 years we were members of the first of all the common market and then the EU. For 20 or so, whatever it was, years, goods from the Netherlands were able to, and for anywhere in the EU, could come in and out of the UK without any checks whatsoever. But now that we've left the EU, suddenly we're at risk of pests and diseases coming from from the EU. The delays, which can run into days or weeks, are placing a significant financial burden on EU exporters. Each physical check can cost between 500 and €1,000. A guy called Mathis Mesken, the director of the Dutch Flower and Plant Exporters Association, said up to 150 trucks carrying flowers and plants can arrive at UK ports on any given day, and every one of them is subject to inspection. One of our drivers had to wait 8 days in a lorry with no clear information from border officials as to why the plants were being held. Freight operators specialising in the transport of plants are now withdrawing from the UK market. We are seeing more companies hesitate or decide against sending goods to the UK. If this situation continues, it's not just a few deliveries that will be impacted. It is entire business relationships built up over decades. Now, this is something I've been banging on about ad nauseum for the last 2 or 3 years, about how food exporters, not just plant exporters who are being quoted here, food exporters in the EU are just going to say it's just not worth the hassle. We just do not want the hassle. There are other markets. It's a big risk. I mean, even now we see in the supermarkets the fruit and vegetables are not particularly fresh. Very often they're a bit stale, and very often there are gaps on the shelves. That's just going to get worse and worse and worse with Brexit. And the Independent wrote, board target operations model, that's the controls that were supposed to have brought in, I don't know how many times before, are now being delayed to January next year for fear of delays resulting in rotting food at the border. And when Angela Rayner, standing in for Starmer last week at PMQs, when she was asked about small businesses, she said, of course, as they all say, it's terribly important, you must support small businesses. And she says, well, one of the things they're doing is, I have to take a breath before I say this, tearing down unnecessary barriers to trade. Yeah, we have erected, or we are now opted to become behind, the most enormous, almost insurmountable, certainly for small and medium-sized businesses, utterly unsurmountable barriers to trade. And they talk about tearing them down. I'm sorry to use the same analogy again that I've used so many times before. It's like you belong to a gym and you use it all the time, and then one day you decide you're going to leave, and so you resign, and you stop paying your subscription, and you go away and you're very rude about them all, and then you decide you want to go and use their facilities again. And so in order to do that, you decide to tear down their rules. These barriers are not ours to tear down. The barriers are there. We chose the barriers. And then, in the Independent, Keir Starmer rules out post-Brexit youth mobility scheme with the EU amid ongoing reset with Brussels. What in heaven's name is going to be reset? Are we going to be nicer to me, smile more? I mean, this is the most basic thing. Why not allow young people, I said it so many times before, why not allow young people to go and spend a year at a university in Europe and have Europeans come here? But no, it's too much like freedom of movement. He's terrified of freedom of movement. What would the Daily Express say? Do you know, right from the start, when Starmer very foolishly 3 years ago said that under his leadership we would never, ever, ever return to the EU, the answer has always been he's got to say that. He's got to say that, because if he doesn't say that, the papers will all say he wants to go back in. The papers are saying that. They're all saying whatever he says, the papers are saying really secretly he wants to go back in. But I think he probably doesn't. And no doubt the Labour Party or a Labour government, they're probably pretty enthusiastic about CPTPP. That's how we're going to replace it, because there's a whole world out there, markets everywhere. Do you know, I had customers in Paris and Amsterdam and Brussels and so on, but I used to go to Paris sometimes. I'd leave home in the morning about 8 o'clock. I get the Eurostar. I live in West London. I get the Eurostar. I'd be in Paris for lunch. And I'd see my customers in the afternoon, and I'd maybe see some customers the next morning. I'd come back in the afternoon afterwards, take a whole load of orders. In the meantime, the orders have been sent through by email, and by the time I got back, they were on their way to Paris. Easy peasy, no paperwork, no nothing. But no, we've got to replace all that. We don't want to deal with them. Oh no, barriers to trade, can't deal with them. And so we're going to deal with CPTPP. Well, do you know what? CPTPP, I think is 11 countries. You know, the nearest one I believe is Brunei. And that is 7,010 miles away. So if you can't get any customers in Brussels, you pop over to Brunei. And you can drive there, actually. Apparently, according to my my computer, it's 582 hours driving. This is just so utterly insane. We cannot. There are three big trading blocs in the world. There's China, there's America, and there's the EU, and they're quickly being chased up by India and maybe Brazil eventually. But we're a small market. One of those people who came to that conference, the investment conference, said, "For us, the UK is no longer a particularly big market." But anyway, let me just read you one or two of the other things I've noticed in the press this last week. The boss of EasyJet, he said that because there's going to be so much congestion at holiday destinations this year, and because of the new biometrics, people are liable to be sat on planes on the tarmac waiting to disembark. The UK, since Gibraltar is supposed to have brought in biometric controls, proper controls at the border already. It's been delayed, but there are 15,000 workers who cross the Gibraltar-Spain border every day, and so heaven knows what sort of a mess that's going to create. There is some talk about Gibraltar being part of Schengen, in which case Europeans would be able to just turn up there without any controls, and whereas Brits would have to go through passport controls. The EU has decided that they're going to insist on all phone chargers being standard, and that means that Apple, the mighty Apple, is going to have to make connectors to comply. Seems that we're considering whether or not we're going to insist on following, or whether or not we're going to perhaps tell Apple they have to keep on making special connectors for us. A guy called Michael Mainelli, who's the Lord Mayor of the City of London, he said that Brexit has cost the city 40,000 jobs, of which 10,000 have gone to Dublin. The City of London continues to shrink as French and German markets continue to expand. The Guardian said that more than 9 million Britons, that's 13%, are now vulnerable to reliance on food banks. That's according to the Tussell Trust. And the electronic entry system, which was supposed to come into effect in Dover at the end of this year, is now being delayed indefinitely because they just can't get it together. A councillor in Dover, a guy called Kevin Miller, he said that none of the infrastructure is ready, none of the IT is ready, and it would have been a complete and utter carnage if they'd gone ahead. And he says they're more than happy that it's being delayed. In the meantime, thanks to Brexit and our new freedoms, United Utilities dumped 140 million litres of raw sewage in Windermere, one of our most beautiful spots in the whole country. And finally, according to The Independent, Starmer has come under pressure to publish the true cost of Brexit after a minister confirmed that Britain has already spent 24 billion alone in withdrawing from the EU, with a further 8.4 billion still to pay. I mean, you'd have to be completely and utterly insane to believe that there was any benefit from all this chaos, this ongoing fiasco. And yet, Starmer and all the cabinet ministers are all can't go back, no, never, ever, ever. Now, one of the problems we're going to face if ever we do seek to rejoin the EU is the fact that we're going to need a pretty substantial majority before they'd even talk to us. And there are still, I'm afraid, an awful lot of people who believe that the Brexit was a good idea. You know, Daily Express readers and Nigel Farage worshippers and so on. And I think that is a problem. I get a lot of comments in response to my videos, and I'm always extremely grateful to anybody who takes the trouble all the time to respond. Vast majority of comments are favourable and supportive, but I do get a few trolls, I'm sure, but I do get a few from people who clearly still believe that Brexit was a good idea, and they seem to believe it for one of two reasons. One is that the EU is a terrible, corrupt, dishonest organisation that was robbing us blind and doing nothing for us. And the other reason is that no matter how bad it is here, no matter how bad things are here, just as bad everywhere else, worse everywhere else. I think these people can always find statistics showing that, 1 quarter, 2 years ago, we were better than Germany, or that we're exporting more than France for a couple of quarters or something, and all these statistics are rather meaningless and have no relation to quality of life, which is what I'm trying to compare in these videos. Now, I've been to about five cities all over Europe, and 2 weeks ago I went to Gothenburg in Sweden, and I posted the video, and I quoted a few prices and talked a little bit about the cost of living there and so on. And in response, I got nearly 2,000 or 1,700 comments. But anyway, I picked out two which I really wanted to share with you because I think they demonstrate perfectly the level of stupidity of some people who actually believe that we should have that Brexit was right and so on. And the first one was a guy called John Wallace. His full title is John Wallace -MB1MI. John says, watched your excruciatingly boring Gothenburg video. Appropriate in that sense. I don't know what that means. He spells excruciatingly with, I think, 3 spelling mistakes. You managed to portray the Swedish self-image of 40 years ago. Today, there are a lot of poor people, and every third train is delayed or cancelled. Dental work costs plenty. Homeless males are largely ignored, and racism is rampant. Now, apart from the fact that Swedish trains are more punctual, by official records, are more punctual than British trains, apart from the fact that you get free dental work up until the age of 25, and after that its payments are really quite low, and apart from the fact that in terms of homelessness per capita we have more than double what they have in Sweden, apart from those facts which he hasn't bothered to investigate. I thought I wouldn't normally bother with this sort of thing, but I thought I'd just respond because it was the word excruciating that kind of caught my eye. Because, you know, if I watch something that's a bit boring, then I stop watching it. And if I watch something that's very boring, I definitely wouldn't watch it. If I watched something that was excruciating and was giving me great pain to watch, I definitely wouldn't watch it. So I said, I think most people would be curious as to why anyone would spend 37 minutes watching a video which they found to be excruciatingly boring. Have you nothing better to do with your time? And can you provide evidence to support your claim that every third train is delayed or cancelled, the price of dental treatment is excessive, and that homeless people are ignored by the state? He replied, sorry about the spelling. Most of the 37 minutes I followed internet auctions whilst listening to you droning on. Says somebody, stupid enough, John Wallace, stupid enough to comment and to contradict evidence I'd given in my video about prices in Sweden whilst watching another channel. So he wasn't really concentrating. And you just think, you know, how can you be so stupid? But the other one is, this is ridiculous. This is a guy called John Simmons 4150. That's JONSIMMONS, no D, 4150. And he commented, he said, immigration the fault, import equals become, Sweden's taxes are high, exclamation mark, £10 a pint, exclamation mark, rentals are astronomic in price, exclamation mark, few jobs, much competition, exclamation mark, always a world apart, out of holiday mode, Mr. Lambert. He's got a bug about me travelling to Sweden. I think he goes on about holidays. So again, I would have left this, but Sweden now is a cashless economy, so that everything is paid by card. So obviously I had prices, I had records of what I'd spent, and I had to look at my credit card statement, and I could see that I bought two pints of beer. The brand was Surfiero, and one day I paid £3.36, and the next day I paid £3.37. So I replied to this man Simmons, and I said, I paid approximately £3 per pint for excellent local brewed beer. Rent is approximately 30% lower than in Manchester, which is correct. So he replies, and this just shows how desperate these people are to just somehow or other you've got to make everywhere else worse. I have Swedish friends. Can't find work there. Work next day in the UK. Out of holiday mode, it's always a different world. Retired on holiday, swanning around projecting a paradisiac image of the EU is bullshit. He then comes back again. He says, 70 krona for a pint. He says, that's £5.10. He says, my Swedish friends tell me it's extortionate, the rentals in Sweden. He then goes on, I have no reason to believe they're lying. One is a 60-year-old woman and her actor husband. And then he comes back again. I mean, he says, on top of which, Lambert is blocking me and telling Porky's average price is £5. To which I didn't reply, but how desperate have you got to be to try and show how things are worse in other places? Anyway, there are lots of people like John Simmons and John Wallace, I'm afraid, and they are going to be a problem when it comes to trying to get close to the EU. Anyway, I've gone on for quite long enough, and so with that, please don't forget my free offer to subscribe if you haven't already done so. And thank you for watching, if you've watched this far. And until next time, bye for now.